Can you hear me now?
There you are.
Yes.
I had about two or
see
three different windows open, though.
Howdy, boys.
Howdy. Oh, look at the stash. Woo!
And I got
You've
some
been
new
drinking
threads.
too much PBR. What?
Oh my god. Why is my
Oh
camera
my
not
gosh.
working? I just got my microphone working.
Howdy, everyone, and welcome
Hello.
to another common room.
Cheers.
Now, one of us, I'm not going to say who, one of us has become a U.S. citizen.
All right. Da, 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 da.
I've been singing the Star-Spangled Banner all morning. It's really annoying Marie now.
Too bad
Oh,
we
my
didn't. Did we get our
goodness.
initial reactions? Because
Oh, yeah. I'll splice it in.
That's
that
great.
was. I mean, that was. Is that why I was recording right when we joined? I'd never seen that before. I'm like, why is this thing recording right when I joined?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought first impressions might be important.
Oh no, this is such a bummer that my camera wasn't working during. At least you can hear me.
Oh,
The true
my
coordinate. I mean, it
gosh.
just. That's incredible. You look like you're from the 70s.
You look like Joe Dirt.
Yeah.
I tried to grow out a mullet, but apparently that takes time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it does.
The fact that you can do your beard like that's remarkable.
Well,
you-
Matt,
I
to you, the
also
fact
let-
that anyone could do a beard is remarkable.
Yes, well, that's true too.
But I also let the kids take off my beard. So we have a power socket outside on the deck. So I went out, plugged in the clippers, and let Alexander and Lucy like take great swathes of it off, and
That's
and I tried
many-
to tidy it up afterwards.
How many work calls are you going to do with this?
I've got 2 today.
Good.
Oh man, that's
Good.
commitment, dude. That's commitment.
Commit to the bit.
Okay, that's right.
Actually, also, I'm interviewing someone from the Museum of the Bible because they have a C.S. Lewis exhibition
Right.
incoming. So,
Yep.
yeah, this is how I'm going to look. This
Yeah,
is-
Diana
this-
Gleyer's going to do some stuff with them.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah, I just figured out. I guess that would be publicly acknowledged, but I was with Alessandro from Hallows on the board of the Museum of the Bible.
Ah,
Oh.
awesome.
Yeah.
Actually, someone from Hallow was on the other Pints podcast, Pints with Aquinas.
Ah, okay.
Alex.
Oh
somebody.
yeah, the person who had the idea from the very, very beginning, CEO.
Was it time for swag?
Oh, sure. Let's see what you got.
The new, larger, deluxe edition of Mere Christianity just arrived
stunning.
from HarperCollins today. You guys should be getting one. So, I'm doing a project with HarperCollins, and they're being super awesome. Look at the cover.
That
very
is
pretty.
stunning. Wow, with those gold leafed edges.
Yes.
They're re-releasing a lot at the moment. They've gone through the Narnia books and they've all got new covers.
Right.
They look really nice.
Yeah. Da da da.
Lovely.
Da da. With gold edges.
The world has kind of shifted
Yeah.
towards, like, as a society, towards beauty. I feel like there's a shift going back. You see it even like with record players. People want to
Pretty things. Yeah.
yeah, new, similar experiences that we've all had, but done in relation to beauty almost. I feel like, at least.
I think there's definitely a move. I think a mixture of COVID and modernity have sort of pushed everyone back to
Well,
more
yes.
tangible, in person,
Yeah.
at least when they can. Or at least recognizing it as a good.
Yeah, no. And I mean, you see a move towards ugliness in the modernist period and brutalist architecture. And part of why the Beatles were so popular is after the death of Kennedy, amongst many other things, and the baby boomers returning and the fear of communism and all the rest. They needed kind of something bright and poppy and fresh, and there along came the boys, singing about love. Yeah. So
Well, today I've got a few things that I wanted to do. First of all, I wanted to talk through what's happening next on the show, because at the time of recording, and we're going to be publishing this probably later today, or if not tomorrow, the final episode of Paralandra has now dropped.
woohoo!
So
Yeah, I
we
saw
got
that.
through chapter 17. So we next have a month of interviews. So we've got an interview with Genius Johnson where I talked to him about that final chapter because he had lots of thoughts of lots of things that he wanted to talk about. So we talk a little bit more in detail about the Great Dance and the Blessed Be He section because we were a little lighter on that in the chapter that we did just because, oh my goodness, so
We
much
didn't want to record a 3-hour episode.
Exactly. Then after that, I've got an interview with Dr. Josh Herring.
Yeah.
He's been on the show before. He's been on A Half Pint, but he and I had been talking, and he's got a book coming out about C.S. Lewis and gender. And so, given all of the stuff that was spoken about in that final chapter, we break that down a little bit. Next, we have Dr. Don W.
by the way,
King.
Josh Herring is, I believe, coming to the Mere Christians conference, and I'm coming on his Curmudgeon podcast soon.
Yes, I heard about the last one.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the Optimistic Curmudgeon. It's a lot of fun. And he's doing a season, which is also his season 8 at the moment, that is very Lewis and Inklings centered. So if you're looking for more material, that's a good place to go.
Yeah.
But after Josh, I've interviewed Dr. Don W. King, and we're talking about, again, that Blessed Be He section, but about a poetic version that was penned by Lewis's friend Ruth Pitter. About his relationship with her and about her poetry, because she converts it into Spenserian stanzas. And I personally found it really helpful to read those and then return to the text. It really does illuminate them. She has a clarity that really helps, I think.
Yeah.
And then lastly, Mystical Perelandra. It's a book by Dr. James Como. He's come on A Half Pint years ago now. I just think that's like COVID time to talk a little bit about it, but we're going to be digging back into that again. And then all three of us are going to be coming back for the book retrospective.
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Yeah. And then after that, we've got Jack's Bookshelf, where we're going to be covering Aristotle, Wordsworth, Kenneth Graham, and T.S. Eliot.
I have already completed the Aristotle interview, and I will say Dr. Lewis does not disappoint.
In all of the Lewis.
Yeah. That's great. And then we're going to do a Narnia month, right?
Yes. We've got a Narnia month coming up after that. We're going to be looking at the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe cartoon. Now, everyone's seen that. A lot of people know about the BBC adaptation, but before that, there was a cartoon. So we're going to be enjoying that. And Lazo Major is going to be coming on to do it with us.
It's funny, listeners. I got an email yesterday, said, Lazo Major can appear on these dates. What's good for you? So we checked with her before we checked with me. So I've seen the cartoon. I used to use it in the high school class that I taught. And it actually, although the colors are weird, I think Mr. Tumnus is like pink or something.
Yeah, red. So it's very 70s.
Yeah, but it actually is the closest adaptation to the text that I've ever seen. So, yeah.
Is that what we're talking about with Lazo Major? I was wondering when I got this text as well, and I was like, I wonder I thought we finished the last battle. What are we doing?
We're now going to go back through the adaptations. So we'll start with
in chronological, huh?
Yeah, we'll start with the cartoon. I think we'll actually also have a little bonus episode on the black and white version, live action version. I think there's only about 10 minutes available, but I think we'll probably talk about that also in the episode, just for completeness' sake.
We're doing one a season similar, so this Lion, Witch, Norwood cartoon, then talking about it. All right,
yeah,
I'm excited.
And then next season we will start on the BBC adaptations. So they did The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and The Silver Chair, and then we stopped. And then by then, hopefully, Greta Gerwig's Narnia world will be fully underway.
Another thing we may want to consider doing is just Narnian influences in pop culture. So there's a little snippet from Family Guy where Peter's in the dryer looking for a sock, and he falls into Narnia, and Mr. Tumnus has his sock on his ear, and he runs off, and Peter curses at him and chases after him. So, and the Beatles, Paul McCartney has talked about Narnia. I mean, it's pretty prevalent, So I don't know. At some point,
it's a bottomless well.
It is.
The next thing I wanted to talk about was my process of becoming an American.
Yeah.
And then catching up with any other news you guys have. And then after that, we had one listener question that particularly related to Till We Have Faces. So I thought we could end with a little discussion about that.
Okay.
So, becoming an American, it's been a long time coming. For people that don't know, I've lived here on shorter term visas, longer term visas. And then 10 years ago, I got my green card. And I know it was 10 years ago because about the time of the election this year, Alexander was pulling all the cards out of my wallet, as he will do from time to time, just to keep me on my toes. And as I was putting them all back in, I noticed that my green card was going to expire this May.
Oh.
It's like, so I thought, I better renew that. And I went on the government website, USCIS, and I discovered that it's just as easy just to apply for citizenship. And actually, if you apply for citizenship, you automatically get a 2-year extension on your green card.
Okay.
So I applied for that just after the election, and within 2 days, I had a message on the portal telling me that I was having a letter sent to my house with my interview date and location.
Wow.
I got to say, given everything else in the process thus far had been very slow and tedious, this was really easy. And so in November, they told me I had an interview in March, I think. Yeah, I think it was late November, and it was the start of March. Unfortunately, it was in Minneapolis, so I had to drive 2.5 hours to go to it. And because my interview was at 8:40, something like that,
wow.
it meant that I had to go up the night before. But that was okay because I had friends in Seattle that it meant I could drive up the night before. Have dinner with
you
them,
mean Minneapolis?
Sorry. The friend that I met was someone that I knew in Seattle. He was my housemate there.
Okay.
So yeah, so I drove up to Minneapolis.
I was just going to say, get your American geography right.
And and so then I rocked up the following morning to the large government building, and you had to go and find parking. And it was one of those parking lots where an hour is $5, and then the next block of time you can book is 24 hours for $20.
Boy. Oh, man.
So I took a picture of that and sent it to Marie, and I went, land of the free? Really? No, you still have to pay for parking.
No, dude, you got taxation, but you had it with representation. All right? So again, study your American.
And I then went into the building, and you go through basically like a mini airport security check. And then you go to the desk and you give your name and your letter. And the funny thing is the lady who was checking me in, she mumbled something. And I went, pardon? And she went, do you need a translator? That was the question that she had asked.
Oh, wow. No, but you might.
Well, it's like, I can correct anything you like. Yeah, sure. But I went and sat down, and just, I think it was like 10 minutes or so, maybe 15. And then my name was called, and then I went into the meeting, and end to end, it was 15 minutes. I was sworn in as an American at that point.
Wow.
They give you a little civics test to begin with. So it's 10 questions out of a pool of 100.
Okay.
And I've been quizzing Americans on these at least the harder ones of these questions. And I got to say, Americans don't do that well. But
no, we don't.
Are you going to ask them of us? I'm genuinely curious here.
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
Why are there 13 stripes on the U.S. flag?
For the original 13 colonies.
Very good.
Yeah.
Could either of you name a member of the House of Representatives for your state, Senate, and your governor?
I can do governor. Hillary Skolton. That's not the governor. That's Governor Whitmer. But then Hillary Skolton. Well, I guess I'm just going back to Michigan.
Yeah.
Virginia's where you're living now.
I haven't switched my
DC doesn't
driver's
have
license.
senators or representatives.
Of course.
Well,
because they really have
Virginia.
taxation
you
without
are,
representation.
you are in Virginia.
Yeah, so Youngkin is the governor.
Yep.
Really like him, but I don't know a single House representative or senator in Virginia.
I don't think. Oh wait, Daniel Webster is my representative, and Rick Scott's my senator, and Ron DeSantis is my governor.
Yeah. In fairness,
And
I could
Kate
have done all those
Worrell
for
is the
Michigan.
state attorney, and she comes to our Wednesday. I see her at church sometimes.
Well done. You have done much better than most Americans have asked.
How are you
ones?
surprised?
Not
And
so
then
What
what
are
else
some
happened?
about what are some about the the stripes ones is an interesting one. Who's your current one? I mean, that just asks if you like politics or not. But I kind of like that history one. Like, is there any other ones that were kind of like that? The 13 stripes one.
I mean, depends on what you regard as history. I mean, with the founding of the states, there is it's called a history section, but to me, it's all history because it's all basically about where did America come from and how is it set up. So it's like how many
And why are we better
how,
than
how
Britain?
many senators are there? How many in the House of Representatives? How long are their terms? Why did the settlers first come to the United States? Who did they displace? Who did they enslave? Yeah, lots of stuff like that.
Yeah.
As well
pretty
as
cool, actually.
some of the very early figures, like who wrote the Federalist Papers, who wrote the Constitution, when was the Constitution adopted,
Wow, that is
who
deep.
wrote
Can
the
you?
Declaration of Independence, all that sort of stuff.
How many do you have to get right? Those are actually like intense questions.
Matt, you
had-
have them before, and you can study them.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I'm kind of intrigued.
hear you.
That, like they're. I mean, I appreciate.
Well, I mean,
it, but
you see
never,
those memes all the time of people who don't know what's going on about anything.
and I will say for my other
Sorry, I
country,
cut you off.
I think people do just as badly on those sorts of questions. Because in England, we don't even have a civics class. At least in the US, that is a thing, and every US school child will learn a reasonable amount about the history of the United States.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I didn't do the kings and queens of England. We did, we did America and we did ancient Greece, but we didn't do our own country. So, some of them are kind of intense. But as Andrew says, you have the questions in advance, so you just go and learn it.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Matt. I wanted to hear what you had to say.
Oh, no, well, I'm also curious. Why is it such a long process when you get married? Like you've been married for a while. I would have thought. I'd understand if you're coming here. There's quite a process. But if like a natural born citizen chooses to somehow marry a David Bates, you would think it would be a quick process. But the fact that it's years later before you actually get that, I guess, is just a little bit surprising.
Well, it's an attempt to stop green card marriages. So it all shifts once you've been married for 3 years. So there was a big form that I had to fill out online. And a lot of that became much shorter because I'd been married for 3 years, giving my employment history, my various accommodations where I've lived in the past. All of that got shrunk because I'd been married.
Okay. That's great.
But yeah, so we had those questions. She then basically asked me a bunch of questions from the form that I filled in, and then there was about probably a solid 5 minutes of all of the silly questions that only an idiot would respond in the affirmative, like various incarcerations, joining terrorist groups.
Are you carrying a firearm, planning to bomb us today?
Yes, raising a child militia, all of those sorts of questions, and then at the end of it, she said, "Congratulations. Would you like to get sworn in now, or would you like to come back for a ceremony with your family?" And there was no way I was driving back to Minneapolis. I was like, let's just do it now. So I had to do an oath. And it's kind of funny because you basically have to say that I'm not. I renounce all my allegiance to every other country, but I still get to keep my passport.
Okay. Good.
I love this, though. I'm glad you had to do that. How was it? Dirty out of your mouth?
Well, I'm applying for my US passport now, which means that at the end of it, I will have passports with a lion, a unicorn, and an eagle. So
There you go.
the 3 coolest animals will be on my passport.
I love
Sounds
that.
like a Narnian carriage ride or something. Yeah.
But yeah, the longest part of the entire thing was then once that was done, I went out into the waiting room while they were printing my certificate, which is now my replacement for my green card. So my certificate of citizenship. And
Well, the longest part was driving across state
Well,
lines.
yeah.
It sounds like
that too. But on the way home, my first American meal, I went and found a Mexican place and got a bean and cheese burrito, and then stopped off at a McDonald's and got a super-sized me soda.
okay.
That makes more sense, but why is a Mexican?
Oh,
Okay, so
well, buddy, you've lived in California. There's nothing more American than Mexican food.
In California, but there's nothing less American than California. I'm just kidding.
oh, hey, that's my native state there. Watch it, buddy. David, you can call it a burrito now. You can change the T to a D.
Never.
Actually, I've been sharpening up my T's, so anytime I read water in the liturgy, I've been hardening those up. Well, you became an American. Kristen and I just booked a flight to Dublin. We're going for the C.S. Lewis Foundation's conference in Dublin, or actually it's in Belfast. but there's no direct flights. And so direct flights were important to us. So we're flying into Dublin, and then we're taking a 2-hour coach up through Ireland to Belfast. So
Lovely.
we cannot wait. So end of July to early August.
The nice thing about flying into Dublin is you get to go through U.S. customs and immigration there rather than in America. So your return journey is much easier.
Yeah, we got our TSA pre-check was about to expire, and it was a similar thing. Global check included TSA pre-check, and it was only just a little bit more, and we knew that we were going to make at least one international flight. So off we went. So yeah,
well, that'll be fun.
Yeah. Speaking of the C.S. Lewis Foundation, they have officially sponsored the Mere Christians Conference in Winter Garden, May 2nd and 3rd. I think Josh Herring is coming, and a number of others. And so tickets are on sale at merechristians.net. And we're gonna have a proper English tea. So if you'd like to see how it's done, David, you can just come on to that. So yeah, we're looking forward to all of that. What's going on in Matt's life?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know we were going into personal lives.
Okay, it's just a common room.
My entire life right now is the business launch.
Yeah.
There's not a lot more to it, to be blunt.
Okay.
Mary Margaret and I had like our first Sunday where I haven't worked in a while, in like last Sunday, because it was really important to go see some of the cherry blossoms. That was what we did for
absolutely. And that's just a 2 or 3 day window.
Yeah, we did that for our engagement pictures, and they turned out to be absolutely stunning. And so it's kind of like the 1 year anniversary of our engagement pictures.
Nice.
And
nice.
We kind of made a joke. We were like, man, today felt long because there hasn't been a singular day where I don't like the weekends. I don't work a full 8-hour day. I usually do about 5 to 6 hours in the morning. Then I'll her and I would do our stuff from like 2:30 and beyond. But that just makes it, Monday through Sunday, if that's kind of how your thing is, you just don't ever really feel like you have a full day with your partner or your spouse where you're just kind of like, we got back and we kind of had brunch. We sat on the couch and, oh, that's beautiful.
Very
Aren't
pretty.
they stunning?
In 2022,
Please tell me
Malcolm,
he composed a poem while you were there.
no, he did not. Although he is now working on Arthurian poems. And so he sat by our fire pit, and I'd cooked a meal for us and wine, and he read the Ballad of the Fair Dindrain that he had composed. And I have the original papers wine stained. And so, yeah, that was 3 years ago now. But you can see the Jefferson Memorial there in the background.
Mm-hmm. Hands down the best memorial in DC. Just one humble American's opinion.
I definitely think it's top 2. I like the Lincoln more. Personally, I just think the Lincoln is incredible.
Too many tourists.
Well, there are a lot of those. When you drive up at night and the lights are on, and it's just absolutely stunning. But that and the Jefferson are both incredibly unreal. I just think, I will say this, living in D.C. and just driving around the National Mall gives you a lot of pride. Like, stunning. Even the government buildings are quite majestic. You're like, man, we've done this stuff right.
I first landed in DC. My first 3-month stint in the States was in DC, and I told my family, I get American patriotism now. I can see where this sort of comes from when you're surrounded by beautiful buildings everywhere, impressive buildings, and you have the words of Walt Whitman carved even into the subway. It's like, all right, I get it.
Kind of the moment for me was standing on the mall, and we were going from one museum to another, and there was no charge for the museum because they belong to America.
But do you know where the money comes from?
No.
England.
How
Smithson,
so?
he donated his entire fortune to the Americas for the increase and diffuse of knowledge.
Okay.
You're welcome, America.
No way. So
I cashed one of those checks in 2018. I think I gave 4 lectures on Lewis at the Smithsonian, and so thank you, Britain, again.
That's cool.
Cool. Kristen and I were talking.
You guys
about...
got freedom from Germany and all that, and we got that. Fair trade.
Kristen and I were musing about what would happen, what we would do, what vacation we would take if somebody just gave us $10,000 or something. Because our vacations are usually going to a conference or going to a study center. We don't know how to chill. And one of the things that we came up with was when we went to seminary, we had a plan to go to a different museum and a new restaurant in DC once a month. And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And so we thought about maybe taking a week and just going to DC and doing that every day. So if anybody wants to send us $10,000, we'd be glad to. Speaking of sending, isn't somebody sending us some ale?
Yes, Peter. Peter's sending us some, and he called it something like common room ale or something
Common
like
room
that.
bitter.
Common room bitter. That was it.
Yeah.
But before we talk about this common room bitter, Andrew,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you can come to DC, do all of that for about $2,000 for a week. I'm not really sure what this 10 grand is needed. I live here.
Yeah. We were
He's got
pulling numbers
expensive
out of the air.
tastes.
Yeah.
Actually, more what you should do, Andrew, is we should coordinate when Mary Margaret and I are gone for like 5 days. You guys should just stay at our place, and then we'll be
Okay.
gone. And ironically, it'd be super easy.
Seriously, though, I mean, JetBlue flights are pretty cheap. We would take you up on that. That would be great. So
Yeah, we have some weddings. We are going to be in Ireland end of May for a wedding for about 5 days gone. So I mean, let's just kind of sync up. You guys crash here.
All right. Well, think about that. So, in other job news, I'm still looking for a job. And we're just waiting on the Lord and waiting on the diocese. And so I'll be in a new spot by June, we think. And there are a couple of things on the horizon. But if you're of a mind to pray, we would take those prayers. What did we get from, what did we hear from Victoria?
By the way, I was just going when you said you're waiting on the Lord and waiting on the diocese, I thought of the scripture from 2 Peter about with the Lord 1 day is 1,000 years, and with the diocese it's a little longer.
I'm not dissing my diocese. I love my dio.
So, okay, right. So this is from Victoria. Hi, y'all. I've just recently begun listening to the podcast, and I've loved the episodes on the Heaven Space trilogy and can't wait for you all to get to that hideous strength because I have no clue what I read in the last 2 chapters. Loved it, but what happened? And as an aside, Audible released their new collection of the Ransom trilogy. It's the first 2 books read with a narrator, and then That Hideous Strength is what the BBC has produced. You can also still get it on their website at the moment, but it's an audio play of That Hideous Strength. Just started listening to it.
Wow.
Anyway, recently I have been listening to the Till We Have Faces episodes. Insert Till We Have Faces soundbite. I've finished the book and would love some clarification on a literary device that I've seen in Till We Have Faces and in the Heavens trilogy, namely Lewis's use of birds as imagery. As Aurora and Bardia are on the ascent to the mountain in chapter 9, Aurora mentions that a lark is singing and then describes the rising feeling of joy that she keeps trying to stifle. I thought this was a beautiful detail because larks typically symbolize morning and new life in literature. Once they go to the tree to find clues of Psyche's whereabouts, Bardia says that the jackdaw may have stolen Psyche's shoes because of the stones on it. Jackdaws evidently symbolize mischief and death, since they are of the corvid family, think ravens and crows. Perhaps the placement of these 2 birds foreshadow the choice that Aurora would have to make later when she saw Psyche's palace, believe and live or choose sin and death. Anyway, I'd love it if you all would expand on Lewis's use of bird imagery in the coming episodes or on the YouTube. Listening to the podcast has been a joy. Grace and peace, Victoria.
Thank you, Victoria.
I appreciate, by the way, on the YouTube. Makes me think of like when these people say on the net, on the line, on the YouTube.
On the Facebooks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's a fair bit of bird poetry, and nightingales and things like that. I think that, Victoria, you're super wise to pick up on Lewis's bird imagery, and I wish I had more of it at my fingertips. But Lewis is often thinking of the romantic poets who talk about birds a fair bit. We see, of course, the robin that is maybe an appearance of Aslan. And Peter says robins
Or at the very
are good
least, the
birds.
symbolism of good things.
Yeah. But, and then Peter trusts robins because they appear in books. Malcolm actually once gave me a book of literary robins. You see the the albatross in Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And so, yeah, so looking for those birds in literature especially in romantic literature, is probably a good way to start because Lewis is very deliberate about the symbols that he's using. That's about as far as I can go at my fingertips. I'll let Matt take over and be more technical now.
Yeah, no, it appears significant in Lewis's work. Lion, the Witch, and Her Wardrobe. Birds serve as messengers, with a robin guiding the children to Mr. Beaver, representing divine
AI.
guidance.
He's reading AI.
And the magician's nephew, the winged horse, Fledge, originally strawberry, represents freedom and transcendent in Narnia's creation.
Not quite a bird,
battle,
but yeah.
The last battle, eagles announce the end of Narnia, functioning as prophetic messengers.
And echoing the Book of Revelation.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then finally in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, the albatross that guides the ship through darkness symbolizes divine guidance again.
What I really liked is the way that you skipped over the things that Andrew had already said because you were paying attention when he was talking.
Except for the albatross. But there's also in Silver Chair, there's a great kind of medieval literary pun. So Jill and Eustace get taken to a parliament of owls. And that's a pun because Chaucer wrote a poem called The Parliament of Fowls, Fowls, right? So if you say it, just normally, Parliament of Owls, Parliament of Fowls is a pun that he's doing. And I think, isn't a group of owls called a parliament?
I think it is.
So yeah, so he was a bird watcher and paid attention to that. Incidentally, I've just downloaded the Merlin app.
Confirmed it. It is a parliament.
Yeah. Okay. Do y'all know about the Merlin Bird ID app?
No.
It's this great app from Cornell University, and it's free, and it'll help you identify birds in your backyard, or birds that you may see. And then if you hear birds, you can turn on a recording, and it'll listen and identify which birds that you hear.
Oh my goodness, it's Shazam for birds. That's amazing.
It's Shazam for birds. And you can take pictures too, and they'll tell you which birds you can download, databases for where you live, and record which birds you see. So Chris and I have had great fun sitting out in our backyard and listening for the birds. Yeah, so good question.
The only thing that I would add is just an affirmation of everything that was said, both by Andrew and ChatGPT. But I would also just say, in general, I think birds in Lewis's literature, they're always heralds. They're always telling you what's coming, or leading you to something. And Andrew, you mentioned his poetry before. The one that really jumps to my mind is the one that's
is what the bird said earlier.
Exactly.
In the year.
Yeah, I heard in Addison's Walk a bird sing clear. This year the summer will come true. This year.
Yes. Yeah. And that on Addison's Walk, there is a plaque that has that poem. Michael Ward commissioned it, and then Jack Redford, the composer, who's done loads and loads of things. He did Skyfall, the strings on Skyfall and stuff. Wonderful guy. He's done work with Malcolm Guite, and he's a friend of the Lewis Foundation. And Jack composed a vocal ensemble putting that poem to music. And so I have pinned down many a tourist at Addison's Walk and said, listen to this. So yeah, birds are there. They also appear in Tolkien and especially with Bard and the Dragon Slayer. And Bard is whispered. He hears the speech of birds. And in medieval literature, a dragon slayer often can understand the language of birds. And so the bird that appears in the Lonely Mountain and goes to speak to Bard is a very medieval trope. So yeah, I dabble around in medieval and in romantic literature, and you'll find all sorts of things.
I'd also recommend what the birds had to say about it. You can find it online from Charlie Starr, where in the poem it talks about what each of these birds kind of represents. Excellent catch. I think we have mentioned once or twice about the birds as we've come across them, but it'll definitely be something to pay more attention to.
Yeah.
What do you think of this, Andrew, as a Tilly Faces expert? I asked it to hone in on Tilly Faces. This feels like it might be an extrapolation, but you can actually answer with more precision. When Orwell visits Psyche on the mountain, birds are present in the paradisiacal valley where Psyche lives. These birds represent the divine realm that Orwell cannot fully perceive or understand. They're part of the world that's visible to Psyche, but invisible to Orwell, highlighting the spiritual blindness that's central to the novel's theme. Is that statement semi-correct?
It seems a little interpretive. Who wrote it? Do you know?
Yeah. Claude.
Okay. Thank you, Claude. Well, and I think that there's something about when she's climbing up the mountain and this kind of lush springtime and this invitation to joy, and there were birds singing. And so I'd certainly have to look. Another really fruitful thing to do, especially until we have faces, is look at the winds, because the winds are represented by different gods. So the southwest wind and the west wind and the east wind, these are all different minor deities, and they have meaning. Lewis is using them quite deliberately, which is why I would love somebody to translate Till We Have Faces back into its original classical Greek. I think Lewis is composing Till We Have Faces in Greek in his head and then translating it into English. And we know he did stuff like that. And I think that, I think the west wind is Zephyrus. And there's all kinds of English poetry. It's Chaucer and all the way forward. All kinds of mythological implications by the different winds that are used in that book, and I think probably elsewhere. So, yeah, great question. Great rabbit trail.
As a final notice connected to that, Ruth Jackson, host of the other C.S. Lewis podcast, she had a baby, and she's called Zephania. Or Zephy or Zephyr for short.
Yeah.
And when she sent me a message, I went, "You realize there's a Lewis connection here, don't you?"
She didn't.
She hadn't realized it.
Oh, it's Till We Have Faces. It's all until we have faces.
It's all
what
until
are they teaching
them in these schools. But yeah, it was. It all came out of the prophet Zephaniah, and they went in that direction. And how perfect! Because
they chopped off the H. Yeah, there you go. Much better.
Wonderful. Well, gents, we covered a lot of ground. Go out and have a nice patriotic day. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.